شوي خمار شوي area Crossroads.
Artinius Shunler, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Walking the Crossroads. It's been a bit, and we're back here in Oxford, and tonight we're going to be discussing the Mecha of the Land and the Stars. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a What the Seared episode. So before I begin, I want to clarify that the Mecha found in Land of the Stars are specifically a mixture of what is known as super robot and real robot. Super robot in the aspect that they tend to be very iconic, they stand out. Some of them, specifically the ones we call the anathema, which we will eventually cover, are a little bit more special. Others tend to be a little bit more specific in the military application. They're more like walking tanks. The thing to remember here is that basically the abilities of them make them more of what we call super robot, in that they tend to be more treated like superheroes. And Tropes.com says the counterpoint to the real robot, for rather real robot as a counterpoint to this, the super robot genre is a genre of science fiction, mostly anime and manga, but found in other communities, focusing on a fantastic superheroic form of humongous mecha. The thing here to note is that we're trying to focus on the deadliness and the rarity of these things. These things are not found in mass. Only the great houses can probably command 100 or more at any given time, the sovereign houses themselves. If they produce them, we call these sometimes the mice. The right houses often have a greater capacity to produce these things than others. Now, there's a group of models that are in play right now, but today we're just going to kind of discuss. The thing to note here is that the actual technology of them is generally on the soft side of science fiction, as most Land Stars is. A lot of it is influenced by shows such as Evangelion, Mobile Suit Gundam, and Big O, and the last one specifically would very likely be Five Star Story. These things are alive to some degree. They're slightly biomechanical, and depending upon which one you're dealing with, they are often made of different stuff. So let's talk a little bit about mecha and Land of the Stars. But first, a kind of a description. A great looming shape appeared in the mountain valley. The form appeared on the edge as if it shifted through the tall trees that were common in that portion of Megmel. The form was colored like bleached bone and was shaped like a great titan straight out of myth. Its face was covered in a chitinous mass that appeared to look like a garish grinning maw made of closed tight, long razor teeth. Its body melded ancient scale mail with that of bone and carapace. Its mouth opened, and a thunderous wailing emitted from its mouth. A Jotun raid was about to begin. So, as it says here in the wiki, or the Lits and the Stars, mecha are ornate, terrifying weapons developed near the end of the Second Expansion era in the interim period between the Void War and the secondary conflict with the Voidkin known as the Dark Years. Earliest known mecha to appear among the primary forms is that of the Jotun, or Giant, and Hollow Tongue. These massive weapons of destruction appear on the battlefield as tall, long-armed, bone and chitin-covered warriors. They scream and wail when in battle, and their eyes burn with a hateful flame. Later designs for the Chevalier, the first created by the Exile Blood of the Excalibur Station, were originally meant to solely combat the Jotun threat posed by the Gogara. However, as mecha became more commonplace and their versatility in war was adopted en masse, they went on from necessity to emblems of military power, noble status, and a means to an end of dissension. Let's talk a little bit about Mecha of Avalon. The distribution, production, and design of mecha is controlled by a powerful collective known as the Rights Guild. Mecha production is strictly kept within the confines of the guild. This includes technicians, repairmen, and even at times the decorators charged with painting the exterior. The reason behind the semi-paranoid need for control is the variety of trade secrets maintained by the guild. These secrets are not found in the actual building in mecha, but the design of various key features that cause mecha to stand out from other weapon systems. The term mecha itself is in fact highly debated within the guild. Some claim it derives from the term mechanized battle form, or perhaps from an acronym, as the Feyre do love their acronyms lost to the eras of time. The qualities that set Mecha apart from remotely Pharaonoid weapons is the melding of nano, bio, psi, and synthetic intelligent technologies to form a war machine of unparalleled ability. Through the seemingly randomly chaotic in nature, Mecha possess a number of abilities that set them apart from other war machines. Compared to other walking or leg vehicles, they are faster and able to react with a higher rate of dexterity. Their internal machinery can do a point heal on its own and shift power as necessary. Synthetic intelligence allows a mecha to learn and become better in fighting as it attunes to its pilot and much more. Mecha in general are kind of classified in what are known as configurations. The right skill maintains general schematics which allow to differentiate key design structures in piloting and control interface. There are a total of 3 theorized configurations and 2 extant configurations. First to appear was the single pilot configuration. Only Jotun are known to maintain single pilot are basically able to be piloted singly, and has something to do with the strange abilities of the Golgara. And only the flesh sculptors who create the Jotun really know how this is done. Second and most commonly used is the dual piloting configuration, which splits the necessary dependencies of piloting between the 2 individuals. Both the Chevalier and the Wakam Mecha utilize this design in their control methods. The final proposed method is called trio piloting configuration, each configuration itself with its own strengths and weaknesses when presented. Outside of configurations, there is one primary means of separating formats of mecha structure, and these are based upon the traditional infantry designations. Some form of mecha, such as the Jotun, are said to have 3, and the truth is, no matter how different, a mecha appears in only 2 real classifications. Mecha who are on the smaller and leaner side in design are fitted with light weapons, but increase engine power, known as light mecha. They are sometimes called strike mecha. Pharaoh are sometimes horrible at choosing names. This is kind of an aspect we're going to note here. The thing about the Pharaoh, they like acronyms, and sometimes they're pretty strange about naming things. They tend to name things after heroes and gods. The only other one is the heavy, sometimes called shield mecha, which is applied to all mecha bearing heavy weapons, armor, and often is considered slower movement. They're also really good for like artillery placement, whereas light are not fitted to take the stabilization necessities for larger weapons. So let's discuss the 3. We're going to do a quick overview of the 3 extant forms of mecha, configurations, classifications of mecha here, and we're just going to kind of cover who pilots them, that sort of thing. Jotun, known as Titans, Star Giants, and other names, Jotun are the most feared weapons in the Avalon cluster, wielded by Gwarish raiders. The actual history of the Jotun is enigmatic at best. Most Jotun appear as great 20 mevre tall Pharaonoid forms, which are often covered in insect-like chitinous armor, usually colored to the desire of its pilot. The Jotun have a strange biological appearance as well, and some claim to see muscles and even skeletal fragments revealed on damaged Gwarish mecha. The Jotun mecha are exclusively piloted by the horrible Dwala strain of the Golgara. Dwala strain pilots are able to utilize minute instances of psi and tech abilities within their mecha when in combat. Only decisive victory and a united line can hope to defeat a Jotun in battle. There's a reason why they're called giants, and why those who kill Jotun are sometimes called giant slayers. Chevalier. This is the one that are most likely going to encounter in the game. The Dark Years began with the arrival of the Jotun terror upon the Triad and a great divide among the ruling powers of the 3 systems. In response to the new threat, the stalwart smiths of Excalibur Station developed the early Chevalier models. Under the direction of Llywyn ach Arthur, his daughter Empress Gwyn, Chevalier became a cornerstone of Triad Avalonic warfare. In modern eras, the Chevaliers become a tool of the nobility to control and rule the population. The shortage of errants who can pilot the great machines and their overall expensive upkeep has turned them from weapons of war into antiques of ritual. To note, there are actually more errants than there are Chevaliers at times, so there is actually a perchance among Chevaliers to fight among errants who gets a Chevalier. Just to note, not every errant who serves a house necessarily has a Chevalier. Chevaliers appear as ornate armored figures covered in carefully lacquered color. The ability to field more than a handful of mecha is often only reserved for the great houses of the 3 systems. Each Chevalier is thus considered a work of art, with the respective rights and production teams considered artisan collectives who build living embodiments of battle and glory. Waka. This is the final known form of mecha. There are others. They will eventually appear in future expansions of the game. The creation of the Waka was precipitated by the blessings of the Aku through their prophet, its Kana, say the Holy Katun scripture. In reality, the strange unearthly mecha of the Itsuyu kingship were reverse engineered from stolen Chevalier technology. The right skill denies this accusation, but that's what happened. Or so the Feyre say in some regards, versus those that do not live in the Itsuyu kingship. The Waka are known as the Rain Givers, or the Chariots of Balaam, for their place in the grand unification of the Four Corners. Physically, they are quite similar in design to the Chevaliers, but hold a few key differences. Waka are generally thinner and leaner in design with lighter armor, and higher emphasis on stealth. Their weaponry seemingly combines elements of tech and nanotechnology to deliver frightening results in combat. Just going to quickly note this here, and we'll cover this again in the future. Anyone who remotely speaks French will note that I am horribly mispronouncing the word chevalier. So note here, chevalier is the low, common Avalonic pronunciation. I'm emphasizing this because if you speak high Avalonic, it would come as chevalier, or more francophone in pronunciation. And that's because we're trying to emphasize the difference between low and high Avalonic. Okay, quick thing about mecha identification. Eventually we'll cover the Imperial identification system. It's just not done lore-wise at this moment. All mecha within the Triad and beyond are identified by even the Jotun, are identified by the Imperial Identification System, or IS. Yes, there is something simply called the IS, which maintains a record of all known mecha in the Avalon cluster. Even those who are not fully a part of the system are within it. Active Jotun units are recorded by marcher families as soon as they appear, and even the Waka and army of the Jaguar Knights are noted. Unlike the ship categories, the system for mecha is different. It incorporates unique signatures of the mecha's creature and its place of creator and place of creation along with the relevant model data. Let's talk a little bit about the general design of mecha. Mecha tend to have some interesting, there's a little bit different between dual pilot and single pilot, but they all kind of hold the same basic parts. The core design of mecha is somewhat uniform across the known space of the Sea of Stars. All mecha are phaeronoid, meaning they're humanoid in design and possess 2 arms and legs. This orientation design has proven capable in combat and gives the core architecture of the mecha design a versatility which has changed little since the first Jotun appeared centuries ago. Most piloting interfaces are somewhat unified in design, with the major piloting configurations having major differences, however, in how the pilot connects with the ship versus, if it has an extra one or not. It also deals with the duties. We'll get to that in a moment. Here's the general features. The mental interface matrix, also known as the MIM. The MIM is a standard found across all mecha and was originally devised from the Jotun themselves. The MIM is a central computer construct used to synchronize and direct the thoughts of all those involved. It's how the thoughts are actually synchronized when it comes to that. We're going to discuss synchronization eventually. Weapons interface, the primary means in which a mecha targets and directs weapons fire. Damage response system. The DRS is a central system that directs and controls the natural healing and repairability of the mecha. Cockpit. It's pretty self-explanatory. This pretty much appears in a near suit-like area filled with 2 nanogel restraints and a connection that links the pilot's the specialized helmet interface. So basically, they kind of stand up. There's restraints, and they move around within it to direct it. Weapons containment. This primary area with extra ammo and auxiliary weapons are stored, generally found on the back of the machine. Thrusters. The primary maneuvering thrusters which can be found along the hips and back, used for air and space movement. Claws, skeleton, and muscles. The internal structure and machinery that allows the mecha to run faster than other vehicles in reaction time and greater movement. Yeah, effectively, they have a claws skeleton, which then has these plasteel muscles played onto it and this kind of flesh. These things are literally biomechanical, gigantic biomechanical things. The core, the central AFD reactor that forms the engine, the power source for the mecha. Now let's talk about the unique aspects of single pilot. The biobond matrix. The added attachment allows the pilot to directly bond mentally and physically with the mecha. Warp plasm, a highly advanced nanobiological agent. Warp plasm is the internal lubricant and neural transfer system for the Jotun or other biological mecha. Exochitin armor, a self-replicating armor that produced by the mecha itself, is made out of highly durable plas steel. Let's talk about the unique configurations of dual pilot. Bond core, a central addition to the MIM that allows for the direct synchronization between the two pilots involved. Primary cockpit, one of the two major cockpits where the lead pilot acts as the primary director and reactor of the mecha. Secondary cockpit. The secondary cockpit is where the bonded soul-giving partner is housed and allows direct access to the MIM and information core. In this act, there is a system core, but the soul-given acts as the extra level of computation and managing extra systems so that the pilot doesn't get overburdened. Let's talk about the common technologies found across all mecha. Alright. Multiple technology advances intertwine to form the basis of mecha found across the triad. One of the biggest and most notable being the biological and nanotechnological agents applied by the right skilled. The artisans who produce the Latrine war machines usually build them in an outward fashion. First the plasma skeleton and then the plasma muscles are layered on. Secondary machine parts or organs are added as semi-biological neural-respiratory system is also added. Many claim that the unarmored appearance of mecha is close to that of a hairless, androgynous pharaoh figure, but actual little evidence is really there to back this. So let's talk about the plasma body. The physical infrastructure of the mecha is based heavily on the biological anatomy, upon that of biological anatomy. A tensile and strong exoskeleton frame, which is often laced with careful latticework of plasma musculature and ligaments. The flexibility of the material is achieved through a mixture of nanofibers and careful composite seals. These seals allow the skeletal frame to move speedily and with careful position. Multiple layers of joints are also built to the lengths of the endoskeleton to maintain dexterity and reaction time. The nano-neural system, also known as the NNS, is a complex mixture of control points and direct fiber nervous system formulated from strong superconducting wire. The central control system here is long silver threads wound into the black ligaments and muscles of the mecha frame. After a careful spider web, the lattice is then wound around the surface of the entire combination so far. These complex systems allow the direct and fine motor control shown by mecha in combat. It is the NNS that allows for the mecha to pinpoint exactly when they wish to strike and time response to deflect incoming projectiles within a few milliseconds of time. However, the nano-neural system nanotechnology in the way this also affects how it interfaces. If seriously damaged by a strike or hit is taken, the feedback result is a brief period of paralyzation for the pilot to the corresponding area in the body. Other cases include quick reaction time can adversely degrade a pilot's sight and their motor control if they remain in the mecha for long spaces of time. Basically, this incredibly overloading system burns out your own personal nervous system over time. Derma armor is the reinforced exterior layer of the mecha's body. This composite is made of several layers with enough defenses to take a hit from a medium artillery vehicle and suffer only minor damage. The skin layers act in a rough fashion to that of normal biological epidermis. A strong outer shell, which is a composite of plating made of both tough, rigid gray autoplating with major plates. These plates are located in the most vulnerable spots, such as the neck, head, and the major joints of the mecha, along with the piloting cockpit near the chest. To note, some situations place the mecha's pilot aspect in the head, but most cases it's in the chest. The layer underneath is then composed of smooth but flexible chainmail-like material known as hyperplause. Hyperplause is strange that when not painted with careful applied, it appears almost like a tightly knit, almost microscopically bound chainmail. This is then lacquered over as a layer of sealant. Sometimes as people view the layers when injured or when layers being repaired, they will often see autonomously mobile semi-liquid. This is the plasmatic armor layer, which has been programmed to allow an extra level of autonomy when healing and replicating the damaged areas. The plasmatic layer can only seal and hold back damage, then they must be repaired by general active engineers and technicians. The core. A mecha's core or heart is the bundle of interconnected AFD drives that then form the basis of its power source. These drives are formulated into a dual-bound ring that then powers into a central ball-shaped device, which then connects to the four powerful conduits that power the mecha's systems. The core, if damaged, will usually shut down and switch the mecha to auxiliary power. The primary core can power a heavy mecha up to 4 days, with up to 3 days without needing the rest when not in constant or considerable combat. However, pushing the system will result in overheating and overloading the system. Called heart searing, the overload can easily lead to the pilots of the mecha themselves suffering from a harsh feedback along the neural connection. Let's talk about entente and detente. Among the terminology of courtly politics is that entente and detente. For years, they were used by the High Avalon nobility to describe the actions of the sovereign game. The advent of the Chevalier and other mecha throughout the Avalon cluster came to change all of that, even when enemy mecha pilots are seen as foreign knights in modern eras. For this reason, the bond that exists between pilot and mecha is known as entente, a word taken from High Avalonic to refer to the harmony required to pilot the near-sentient entities. Detente, on the other hand, refers to the time of rest and relaxation of tensity that results from when the pilot disengages themselves. The NNS of a mecha connects the pilot directly in via their helmet, where a holographic HUD is created. From sensors and cameras, the pilot is able to view the mecha surroundings and through special locator patches on the spine and limbs to cause them to move. The cockpit of a mecha may vary. Most are fitted with a stand-like formation that connects a series of small attachable sensors along the spine limbs of the pilot. Then the Entente's form, as the Homari rating HR, is registered between the state which stresses the machine is between the mecha and the pilot. If any problem occurs, the HR will fall and Entente will be broken, causing a violent reaction from the mecha. In turn, this breaks the usual detente state which stresses the mecha system and can cause ongoing issues with HR status. The cockpit, usually, some script this layer as a means of acting more heroic, contains a hardened layer of armor around the inside and the outside. This prevents radiation from space or armor-piercing rounds, in theory, from penetrating the chamber and slaughtering the pilot. Okay, everybody, thank you for today's discussion. Next time we'll be back and we'll talk a bit about the Jotun and possible other enemy mecha, and then we'll finish off with talking about the very complex ideas of the Chevalier. Until next time, this is Shadowed Sin, aka Patrick OC, and as the Amazons say, Vahenshush, spirits to you.